Welcome to the Wodesman podcast, catching up with all things bushcraft, wild camping, and the great outdoors.
So hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Wodesman podcast, the first of 2025. So that gives me and Liam the very big pleasure of saying Happy New Year to all of our listeners. And yeah, it's great to be with you, dude. First one of 2025.
Yeah, I can't believe the years have just flown by. You know, it doesn't seem that it's been 3 years now since we started this, but what is it, 4 years now? Okay,
I actually can't remember. Has it been that long?
so we've done. I think we've done at least three Bushalutions. This might be our fourth Bushalutions. So
We'll have to
yeah,
look back on the old back catalogue and count up actually how long we've been doing this for now.
yeah, it's definitely been great doing it with you, man, as well. So happy New Year to you and to all of our listeners, like you said.
Yeah, likewise, bro. It's really nice to see your face. And yeah, we need to meet up soon and see each other and give each other a big hug.
Absolutely. I've got to build another shelter opposite yours, man. Like I really enjoyed seeing what you've been up to in your woodland, and I know we will be talking about that later in the episode. So yeah, a warm welcome to everyone who's new to the Wodesman podcast. And if you are, myself and Tom, both YouTube content creators, and that's how we met, vicariously at first through the comment section and then at the Bushcraft show. So there's a lot of history there. And yeah, hopefully this episode is just going to go through a little bit of some of our kind of experiences with winter cooking and also something that we do on the podcast, which is the Bushalutions, isn't it, Tom?
It is indeed, yeah. So for listeners who haven't been with us as long as others, Bushalutions is sort of a little word we've coined to describe our resolutions for the new year. But we focus our resolutions on something to do with bushcraft or the woods or survival skills or anything to do with nature, really. So yeah, me and Liam have been friends for a long time, and so this whole podcast came from this idea of we would just be chatting over a call like this, and we'd be telling each other the things we'd be focusing on, the things we were learning, the books we were reading. And we still do it, don't we? Like I found that deer print the other day, and I sent you a picture, and you were like, "Ah, yes, let me see the length of that." And we were just nerding out over text about which deer this footprint was probably from. And that's where the podcast
Yeah,
started,
it's been
wasn't
a
it?
nice asset to our relationship, hasn't it? It's that able to and fro between a common interest, but then play to each other's strengths as well, which is again what this podcast does perfectly. And it's like you say, it's been a great journey with you, man, and a lot of a lot of memories that we've made throughout those as well. And I hope
And great people that we've met as well as a
yeah,
result of
yeah,
this.
absolutely. I hope some of our listeners who we've met in person as well will probably share the same sentiment. That it's just fantastic to get to meet a load of people from all walks of life through something like this. So the Bushalutions has always been a quite a an intimate touch, hasn't it? It's quite a nice connection with the listeners.
Yeah, I think for us it's a very important thing because, as I said before we did the podcast, we'd be telling each other sort of what we were learning and our aims, and this is our way of expanding that to sort of a larger community. And I think it means that we feel really connected to our listeners because we actually listen to what you say and what you're doing, and we feel involved in your journey and your bushcraft.
That's it. And as the years go on, obviously we get more and more Bushalutions. So we've reached out this time proactively beforehand, and a handful of people have already sent in some Bushalutions. So I think we're going to start with our own, as we do traditionally.
Yeah.
I know we both are obviously very passionate about the outdoor skills, and our Bushalutions could go vast and wide in regards to where we want to target things, as could many people's. But Tom, is there anything that you've got this year as your main Bushalution or a few Bushalutions? What would you like to hone in?
Yeah, definitely. For those people that don't know, I own a very small woodland, and I think this year I'm really focusing on woodland management as a sort of goal for myself of just learning more about the species of trees, how to look after them. I'm learning a lot more about sort of chainsaw use and how to deal with sort of hung up trees and clearing areas to allow more light through, all of that sort of thing. So I think my first bush solution has to be to improve my skills at woodland management and to just hone that side of things, which obviously isn't bushcraft, but it is connected. And the more we understand about the woods, the better our bushcraft becomes. So I think honing those skills, so using a chainsaw, how to actually encourage species diversity, and all that sort of thing, that sort of management side, I want to learn more about this year, and to be active in managing my wood. On the more bushcrafty side of things, I think I want to continue expanding sort of how I share bushcraft with other people. Um, as you know, this year I've introduced a club where I work, and I now teach bushcraft each week to kids. So I want to continue to expand how I do that, the sort of the teaching strategies I use, and the skills I share, just to really expand that repertoire, and maybe focus on some more advanced things like knots, expand the types of firelighting we do with the kids, maybe for some of the older students that I have, because I also do families and adults as well, really hone in on that sort of use of tools and things like that. So I think, yeah, for me, there's sort of the professional goal of expanding my craft in that way, and then also just for myself, it's just lovely to share it with more people. So that would be my bush solution for the year.
Well, they sound like they go hand in hand as well, because as you progress with your own woodland management, and like you said, that crosses over to not only when you're in the wood, your own woods, but you're learning skills of being a custodian of any woodland that you go into. As you're learning things about that, that will also skew or inspire you to take your students, whether they're mature or young, down a different route as well. So it's going to be really interesting to hear all about it as the year progresses, and I can't wait to
Yeah,
see the work you have been doing on the woodland too.
definitely. And I know that you're the same as me, Liam. Like on this, we obviously have to choose a few bush solutions, and neither of my ones I've just highlighted there are really to do with me and my enjoyment outside.
Yeah,
And they're more focused on the sort of larger picture. But I just always am thinking about more things I want to learn. Like when you're telling me about uh, deer species and things, I'm like, oh, I really wish I'd learned more about that. And when I go and do some archery, I'm like, oh, I'm happy with my grouping, but it could be tighter. So I want to practice and get better. So I think, as well as my two specific bush solutions, all my little hobbies within bushcraft, I just want to continue to practice, even down to like using air pistols and air rifles, just improve my grouping slightly. Spend more nights outside in the shelter, just all the little details, just fine tune them a little bit.
yeah, I like that, because it's you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Bushcraft is this conglomeration of loads of different skills and assets, and um, you know, it's really hard to dedicate the time to every single one of them and become proficient. And there's that old saying of jack of all trade, master of none, but
Mm.
there is more to that saying, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but you know, it's always that battle that we have to. The more information you get, or the more knowledge you go, the more pathways that open up that might gain your interest. So you're diluting your available time to dedicate to each one of those, and it's such a hard battle. And I think that's one of the great things about the Bush solution, is that it kind of focuses down or pinpoints a certain area that you're looking at, but very rightly, like you said, also then looking at it as a whole and saying, actually, let's bring all those conglomerations and just keep doing what I am doing, because it can be hard to keep momentum sometimes.
That's it. That's it. And it's like we'll never stop learning. And just because my bush solutions this year are on the woodland management and they're on the educational side, doesn't mean that I haven't set myself other goals of areas that I want to improve. And I
Yeah,
just want to I just want to, there's always more to learn, and I want to keep learning. So
good man.
yeah, there we go. How about you then? What's your Bushalution or Bushalutions this year, Liam? I'm looking forward to seeing this, because I don't actually know your Bushalution, do I? It would be a
No, yeah,
surprise to me as well.
fairly simple. I guess, in hindsight, I probably, of what I was thinking about before I came on, I've probably got a few, but I'd like to just spend more nights out in the woods, basically. So often I go out and I do day trips, and I'm going out streaming, I'm coming back and I'm editing, I'm doing things,
Mm,
or I'm going out on trips and I'm just filming. I'd like to spend some time out in the woods just for myself, even if the
yeah,
camera's not there. And I think it's important because it's just time that I need. It's literally just
yeah,
downtime, and I don't get that very often. Work is so busy as it is with everyone.
mm,
Doing content creation on the side, having a relationship, normal human things,
yeah,
and it it becomes very often that I'm going out in big groups of people, or I'm going out to do a specific camp. And although that's nice, it's kind of, I want to dedicate a little bit of time of just going back to the old school where I just used to go out and just enjoy
yeah.
my evening and just go where the woods takes me and don't have to
I
worry
think that's
about
brilliant.
the camera. So it's, yeah.
I think that's great, because like, even though we're both relatively small content creators, we still have
Absolutely.
an audience, and we are we're driven in the fact that we like to show people what we're doing, but sometimes you can feel almost pressured to take the camera, even when you just
Yeah.
really feel like you need some time to yourself. And it's so easy to forget to give yourself that time. And so I
Definitely.
think that's a really good goal for you, especially like, because you do the live stream. I only do like the odd video. You're way more dedicated than I am on the videos, and you do the live streams, and you're doing the podcast, and there's so many strings to your bow that sometimes maybe it is just really nice just to go and enjoy yourself,
Yeah,
and go and
absolutely.
practice something for the sake of it. And I've been forcing myself to not film every time I go out now, because I now live in the countryside. I have a lot more access to the woods, and I get to go there a lot more frequently than I did when I was in London. And I was
Yes.
finding, I was like, oh, I need to bring the camera. And then I was like, do I actually? No, I'm just going to go there after work and enjoy myself. And maybe I'll take a photo or two, and that's it. And I'll just go and
That's it.
enjoy it. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I think good for you, dude. I think that's a really good bush solution. Just spend more time outside, and also give yourself the time to enjoy it.
Yeah, because there comes a time as well, and I think Joe hits it. It's not, you don't ever reach the walls of, you'll never reach the end of your journey learning, but you'll get to a point where you don't feel the need to, for example, go out and camp all the time. So then the content creation inspires you to go out and camp a bit more. But then obviously with that comes a responsibility of people, and it's a natural expectation. They're subscribing to a channel that's providing content. So then that pressure works both ways. But you have to remind yourself, to, again, like you very, very rightly said, to just do things for yourself sometimes, and remember the love of it, because yeah, it got for me a little bit I don't know, disheartening sometimes when I looked back and I was thinking, I didn't even do a solo camp without a camera, or I didn't,
Mm,
I can't remember the last time I went out. So I think that really is, yeah, my bush solution. And to just, again, very similarly to you, to keep doing the things I'm doing, like the hide tanning. I've been
mm.
quite hard on stuff like that at the moment, and it's been insightful. It's very hard work, but yeah, just to keep up those little projects, but give myself some time as well in between and not burn out really.
Yeah, it's like, I can't remember the last time I sat and carved a spoon
Hmm.
just for myself to carve a spoon. I've
Yeah,
carved spoons to give to people. I've carved spoons to teach people how to carve spoons. I've carved spoons on courses, showing people
absolutely.
how
Yeah,
to do it. I haven't sat down and done the hobby of spoon carving that I really enjoy just for myself in probably over a year, if I'm totally honest. Like, probably the last time I sat down and just did it for the sake of it, not filming it, not teaching it, not giving it as a gift, and having a sort of time pressure behind it. Yeah, so yeah, it's good to give yourself these reminders. Actually, do the things you enjoy, and don't lose sight of the fact that you enjoy them. Yeah, cool. That's actually kind of hit me, that I haven't done that for a long time, just for the sake of it. Maybe I need to do that.
We often forget the little things that make us smile, and again, that's why we all got into bushcraft. It's things that we enjoy, and it's funny that we can get caught down little rabbit holes that just keep you occupied, and then suddenly you look back and think, "Hang on a second."
Mm. I did it the other day, actually. I realised that I hadn't done a split wood fire with just feather sticks and a fire steel from a single stick for a long time. I'd done the odd feather stick and things, but I'd not done that sort of challenge of sectioning up a piece of timber,
You were
splitting the
also a big
wood into the
advocate of that.
splints. And I did it, and I didn't film it. I think I took a picture of the finished feather sticks or something, but I didn't film it or anything, and that was it. And it was really nice just to do it for the fun of it, and
Yeah, I can
not
imagine.
have anyone there to see it, just for me. And yeah, so maybe this is a little, maybe that's our message, for because we normally like to have a little sort of motivational thing of go out to the woods. Maybe that's today's one, is yeah, remember to do the things you enjoy.
Yeah, the things you love, and what drew you in the first place. Go back to that and practice that skill, and revisit the things that, yeah, that, like said, Tom said, you enjoy. And we've had some actually really good bush illusions, haven't we, Tom?
We have, yeah, and some really inspiring ones as well.
I'll start with Paul Jones Bushcraft School, who would love to make it on the podcast. That was his bush illusion, so we'll definitely have to make that happen.
We'd love that. And it would be really nice, actually, to have a chat with him, because I follow his school and I've
Yes,
seen him doing his club. And obviously, I run a club in a school as well. And it would be really nice to sort of share ideas and just have a chat about our experiences. I think that would be great. And he's a very inspiring guy. I really like him. I think he's got a load of skill to
and it's
share with
long overdue,
people.
isn't it?
And he's very, very humble as well. So I'd love to have him on the podcast. And actually, to meet him, I've never actually met him, other than we comment on each other's posts, but I've never met him. So it'd be nice to meet him, even if it's in this format. So we've got Into the Forest Ryan, who's a really another sort of common listener that has become a friend, absolute legend. And he says he wants to learn more about coastal foraging and fishing. Me too, Ryan. Me too.
Love that. I was lucky enough to go down to the coast in Dorset, I believe it was. I'll get grilled if it wasn't, with bushcraft tools. And we
Mm.
did a little bit. I got to witness some of that where they were doing some coastal foraging, and it was just such a great insight. So yeah, likewise, Ryan, I would love to do that. And I always see the coastal course at bushcraft course at the bushcraft show. I can't remember who runs it, but yeah, always interests me.
But yeah, I used to love watching when I first got into bushcraft, the videos I would obsessively watch over and over again were the old MCQ bushcraft coastal 5-day survival videos, where he'd be like cooking limpets and eating seaweed and then taking his shotgun out and shooting a pigeon. And oh, I just love that
Drying
stuff.
his
So
shirt on
good.
the line between the rocks.
That's it. It's just epic. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and I remember watching Ray Mears, and he'd, be cooking up razor clams on the beach and limpets, like you said, and making his own
So
little
cool.
hidden mound. And I just think, because it's one of those origins of humanity, isn't it? With
Mm,
tribes all around the world relied on the coast for a massive amount of their diet, especially at certain seasons of the year where other things were less
that's it.
reliable.
Yeah, look at the midden mounds and everything. They're just eating and chucking the shells over their shoulders and like proper, like, oh, I love it. All that stuff.
And you
It's
can
just
find,
so
like, in amongst that, the
amazing.
stick like deer bone, and there's
We be eating good today, boys.
that's a great
uh,
solution.
that's
Um,
a brilliant one, and yeah, something I'd like to know more about as well, for sure. So the next one is by Daddy Bear Grylls. Good name. And he says to get more monthly camps in my woodland and cook up more wonderful feasts. So he's obviously also a woodland owner, and
I love
he
that.
wants to get out monthly to camp, and I think that's brilliant. Setting yourself that goal of every month, regardless of what happens, I'm going to the woods and I'm camping. And to focus on what we're going to talk a bit about later, which is campfire cookery,
Yeah.
it's always a really nice reward at the end of the day, because when you own a wood, it is a lot of, you end up doing management or felling a danger
All the fun.
tree or splitting wood to take back to the cottage for fire, so that you always end up doing something. So it's always nice to settle around the fire and have a nice big cook up at the end of the day.
Yes. Oh yeah, I've always enjoyed the cook-ups in your woodland. Especially your stag do. That was just,
That
one
was
of the best.
insane.
Yeah,
Well, we're going to try and make that a yearly thing, aren't we?
we
Because
are indeed.
it was just ridiculous, the steaks.
It's, it's fantastic. So yeah, a really good Bushalution Daddy Bear Grills, and I hope to follow your journey along on Instagram whilst you do that, and join in vicariously. And that's followed by Cobalt D Outdoors or Cobalt Outdoors, and he said he'd like to camping, carving, campfire cooking, catching up with companions, and consuming cold ones with the boys, which I can very much agree to that last sentiment.
Yes, lad. That sounds great.
It does indeed, and I can't fault it at all. To be honest, like you said, the carving, that's right up Tom's alleyway. I enjoy a bit of carving as well, but what a great Bushalution, because it's so therapeutic. And you get some
Definitely.
awesome stuff as well.
Yeah, and you just get to, I always think, because your fingers are on the line, you actually truly do just zone into what you're doing, and all other worries go out your head, because you have to concentrate, otherwise you're going to cut yourself. So it forces you to get in that zen mindset. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, benefits of bushcraft, isn't it? Like it just distracts you. It's one of the only times I can find myself being like, actually, my mind was silent.
Mm.
It's like having a silent prayer. It's
Yeah,
really, really
yeah, it's very
there's
special.
being quiet with your mouth, but there's being quiet in your head. Like sometimes you could be you could be so busy in your head, you might as well be.
I mean, I find all the time there's like loads of noise going on in here. I mean, I'm always like quite overexcited person anyway, um, but I'm always thinking about the next thing. I've got to run there, or I've got to go and do that, and it's really good sometimes just to sit and carve something and slow down.
Yeah, yeah, and sink a cold one with the boys.
And sink a cold one with the boys is always something I'm up for. Oh, we had a great Christmas party. Sorry, this is a
I bet
complete the thing with my new colleagues, and there's a guy on the staff who I get on really well with, and he was just hilarious. And sorry, this is not to do with bushcraft at all, but at
No,
one point, the bar tried to close that we were in, and he goes, "Well, in that case, I'll have 4 beers and 8 sambucas, please." It's hilarious, but we do not encourage heavy drinking on this podcast. So, please consume
sensible.
all beverages sensibly. But it was very funny. And moving swiftly on before I digress too far, our next Bushalution is from Wilderness Wanderer, another cool Instagram account I follow.
Absolutely,
Um, he's jumped on the Bushalution train, and he said that
good
he
on
wants to get out in his hot tent, and
it.
that sounds brilliant. Love a hot tent. I've never actually been in a fully enclosed hot tent with the stove. It's something I really want to do, but it doesn't necessarily get that cold enough all the time to justify owning one, because they're not cheap, are they, buying a hot tent? But me and you,
So,
sorry, Liam's just like dying in the background. What was that?
no, it's just that I just remember Joe Price's last episode of Joe Price when I was explaining like, how I was dying of the heat in that hot tent because I had my Corinthia 4 sleeping bag. Then I woke up in the morning because I'd opened it. I was like freezing. So it's like this dichotomy of this battle. Good memories with hot
Yeah,
tents.
because we did it. We made like a hot tent out of tarps, didn't we?
It was
Once,
brilliant.
which was really
Yeah.
cool.
For your
But I've
birthday.
never. It was birthday camp a couple of years ago, yeah. But I've never actually been in like a specifically, like one of those TP tent TP sort of things. Never done that, and I'd love to.
Yeah, it's
Um,
by Molly and stuff, isn't there now?
yeah, there's some really good ones. But yeah, it's -5 today where I'm at. So,
Yeah.
you
So
know, maybe, you know, a bit more of this and maybe I can justify it.
well, you got a Lavu, and that's obviously what I've only hot tented in. Although I've done a hot tent style TP with two big tarps, like huge tarps. That was actually
Nice.
Joe Poshrat. He constructed a huge one. We had a fire in the middle, so it was basically a hot tent. You could sleep like 6 people in there. It was fantastic.
That's cool. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think some of the tarps got slightly damaged, but
Worth it. Worth it.
yeah, worth it. You can imagine in a survivor scenario, absolutely worth it as a group. But um, yeah, the Lavu is so small that you can't have a big stove in there, and
You
you
just
can't have
hugging the stove.
yeah, it's like, it's fantastic and a lovely experience, and definitely, like you said, as it gets to these kind of temperatures, it definitely warrants it. So, yeah, look forward to seeing some of those hot tent trips. Hopefully, some snow on your way, Wilderness Wanderer.
Mm.
And
Yeah, please let us know how they go. Send us some pictures when you do go on your hot tent trips. That'd be great to see.
yeah, we'd love to see that, and hopefully in the future, and we're not sure when we can commit to this. Hopefully, we will be progressing to a video podcast, so we'll be able to hopefully share some of those on video at some point. When myself and Tom are able to meet up in person, it's going to be great to get the camera on and just
Yeah.
film it by the fire, because we always do this basically in one take. We might cut off the odd little cough or mumble here, but other than that, it's very raw. So what you see is what you get.
Mm.
But yeah, the primal explorer, sorry, not the primal wanderer, the primal explorer, um, responded with his solution, which was to cave camp in different areas of the UK. So if anyone has any cave camps locations, let me know. And I know Tom has been pulling on my arm about a cave camp
I
location.
have
You
indeed.
want,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to
For,
dispel the location or
yeah, I mean it's quite a famous one. The Priest Hole in the Lake District. If you
yeah,
don't know it, look it up. It's one of those sort of like everyone knows about it
you got
secrets.
memories there.
I've been there a couple of times and camped there with my good mate Chini, and yeah, we've done it in some terrible weathers. And then I've been up there with my dad in an absolute storm, and it's pretty awesome. And me and Liam are gonna do it at some point. Me and Emma are talking about doing it at some point as well. My wife, she wants to go up there and camp in a cave, so hopefully not as in such biblical weather as I did it last time, because I remember me and my dad were standing on the edge of this cliff and we were trying to wring out our boxer shorts because we would literally we'd walked up this thing in like this absolute monsoon, and we're like trying to wring out our clothes, just standing there in this cave in our boxers, just trying to wring out our clothes. We did have some spares, but not many. So we were like trying to just make sure that the water didn't get out of our clothes we'd worn and make everything else wet. So we're like just trying to, yeah, it
Yeah,
was hilarious. It was very, very funny. But yeah, if you find any good locations for us, let us know, because yeah,
definitely.
cave camps are really cool. There's a channel I love on YouTube, Scotty Goes Walkabout. And
Yeah,
he's something I'd love to contact him, actually, see if we can get him on the podcast.
absolutely would.
I don't know if he would be able to or would want to, but if he did, he's an awesome guy from Australia. But he does loads of cave camping in Australia.
That's the world.
Um, yeah, and it makes me jealous every time I watch one of his videos, because he's like just got these awesome caves to camp in,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, the kangaroo just went past.
it's just, yeah, like I said, it's the land for it, man. It's incredible. I remember, honestly, and this is no word of a joke, in Queensland near the Salisbury area. That's where I was living, and for a year, like quite a while ago, like 2011 or whatever, and there was just this bit of rainforest in the middle of the kind of suburbs. It was just a small little patch of forest in between some housing estates, and even in there was a cave. And I'm like, man, like what? How is this place so cool?
You're like, cancel my rent. I'm living here.
Yeah. But honestly, yeah, an amazing country, Australia. And
Mm.
like you said, it'd be great to get Scotty on. That'd be
Yeah,
fantastic.
he's a cool guy. Me and Emma, we tend to, on a Sunday morning, we like to watch. We either watch you, Liam, or we watch Joe Rabinett, or we watch Scotty Goes Walkabout. that's like our Sunday morning routine. If we're not camping ourselves, we will watch a camping video from one of those three. So
I like that routine.
yes. Okay, so our next Wodesman Bushalution is from Jordan Burton 97, and he says he wants to learn how to identify trees when he's out and about. I think, again, fantastic Bushalution. It sort of underpins all other bushcraft, doesn't it? Being able to identify trees and how and understand their different uses and benefits and things like that. So yeah, definitely a good one to study for sure.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll find some good information, in some of our videos. We don't specifically or may not have specifically done videos like, here's the oak, here's the ID on the oak or whatever, but in our videos there will be these bits of information drip fed, so hopefully you'll find some of that, and also through the podcast as well. And if there's any little tips you're struggling on, or any ID factors or trees you're struggling on, let us know and we'll try and do something on it anytime.
Yeah, definitely. I like to think about trees and plants as being a bit like a 1,000-piece puzzle.
Yeah,
And each time you learn one, it's like you found one more piece of that puzzle.
it's
And
a reinforcement,
it's
isn't
a puzzle I've been studying for a very long time, and I've still only got
it?
the border
Yeah.
done. But yeah, trees I'm a lot more confident with than plants. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile thing to study for sure, and something that I'm constantly learning about. There's like always another tree to learn, always another plant that I'm like, oh, what's that? I don't recognize that, and then I'll go and look it up. And yeah, it's great thing, and one leads to another as well when you start looking into like families and related species and lookalikes, and it's a snowball. It will snowball for you. Liam, should we touch on the I think there's three left that we had, or three or four left, but at least three of them are linked.
Yeah, how about we do that? Because I know time's pushing on. So we've got a few things to go off and get onto respectively. So it was really, to learn to use a bow drill and get out more, which was SCOD, all
Yeah,
with underscores. We
and Wade and Wyson. Sorry if I've got that wrong.
I guess he's German, maybe
Yeah,
Dutch.
and he says he wants to do monthly all fresh collected friction fire with natural cordage, which is really taking that skill to the
Oh
next
yeah,
level.
that's a difficult task.
Yeah, so good luck with that. That's a really good thing to focus on.
But
And
something
yeah,
that reinforces reliability when you're out.
that's it. And like cordage is its own skill, so when you combine that with friction fire and doing it all fresh on the spot, just makes an already challenging task more difficult. But also it means that the reward for it is bigger as well. So good luck with that from us. Let us know how you get on.
Definitely.
And let us know what cordage you end up opting for as well, because obviously that changes the dynamic um, depending on what you have available in your area. So yeah,
Absolutely. And you might find actually different woods prefer different cordage types. So you might actually think, well, actually a slightly softer spindle but a slightly harder hearth would actually benefit the the strength, or not the strength of the cordage, because obviously that's determined, but the amount of the amount of pressure that's going into that cordage, because obviously the more stress on the spindle, if that spindle's got more resistance, you're going to be it's pulling on that cordage much more. So if that spindle is able to slip a little bit easier, it's going to help.
yeah,
There's loads of facets to that, and it's a very ambitious and
it is a really ambitious thing. But again, if you've done it before, doing it again is a thing that you've done it. You've got that sense
yeah,
of achievement. You're like,
exactly.
I know if I problem solve, I'll be able to do it again. I just need to recreate it. And it's even down to like tilting the bow and using the bow at a slightly different angle than you would with paracord, because obviously with natural cordage, if you get that cord rubbing on itself,
Oh
it
yes,
will it could easily snap. So
you need
it's
that
you
separation.
do slightly have to alter how you perform. Like for me, doing a normal bow drill is sort of second nature in a lot of ways. I mean, still sometimes it's more challenging than other times depending on weather, condition, material, but I have a routine of how I will do it, and I know how things feel when they should be working. Um, so then if I chuck in another variable, like a different style of cordage, I'd have to alter maybe how I did the bow drill, the angle of the bow, my cadence, all that sort of thing. So yeah, really good bush solution, and one that I'm really sort of eager to hear how you get on with that.
And maybe, and this is just from me, and you don't have to do this, but maybe give yourself the best chance at first. So maybe, because you want to reinforce success, you don't want to reinforce failure. So if you can give yourself a slight mechanical advantage with an easier bearing block to start with, so something that, a metal bearing block or an antler bearing block or even a
Mm,
bearing one at your first go with the friction cordage, so you can see, like Tom said, the angles that you need to change or the adjustments you need to make without having a complete catastrophe. Although you can learn from failures, it's always good to try and reinforce success.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I think there was actually only two last bush solutions. So I'm glad you said let's have a little chat through those, because, like you said, they're very linked in. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for sending those in. I think they're, really really nice, and the bow drill is always a good skill to rely on when you're out in the wild, or be able to rely on it at least, especially as it
yeah.
comes into winter months. Like learning how it works in the colder temperatures or damp climates is
Mm.
definitely a big learning curve. But
I mean,
what,
I had that with my woods because I tend to favour willow when I do bow drill, and my woods doesn't have any willow.
no, I
So
can imagine.
first bow drill I got in my woods was from a species I'd never used before, which was poplar. And
Nice.
then I didn't actually like using the poplar
It's not too
as
popular.
much. I didn't like the how it worked, and I've had multiple fires now from straight from my woods, making a fresh bow drill from poplar, but I didn't really like it as a wood compared to willow or other woods I've used, like spruce or hazel or cedar. So I was experimenting and I tried the ash that I have in my woods, and actually I much prefer that wood because it's easier. I find it easier to get a wood of the right consistency. So even though you'd think it's a harder wood, probably
Yeah,
less chance of success than the poplar, I personally preferred it to the poplar.
love it.
And I don't know whether that's just my personal preference or what, but it's interesting. So I've now got
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
the two options for friction fire from my woods that I didn't I hadn't used before. So maybe if you are confident with the bow drill, set yourself a challenge. Do like you did, Liam, where you gave yourself a limited area to light your fire. Um, try it, and do a bow drill in a different bit of woods than you've done before, like with a different selection of trees and materials. And it's just adding in those variables, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Because that's something actually I'd love to revisit is softwood or evergreen um, bow drill. So
Mm,
using things like spruce, because a lot of the time, predominantly like yourself, I'll use something like willow or grab some sycamore. Fantastic wood for
yeah.
friction fire.
Mm.
Um, and it's just it's nice to go out of your comfort zone and say, actually, well, what if I'm in the boreals? you know,
Interestingly, when I did my intermediate bushcraft course with Paul Kirtley all those years ago, again, my go-to was willow, and my go-to was sycamore and hazel and that sort of thing. And then when we were building our shelter, we saw this dead spruce bough just hung up in the tree, and I think it was me and Craig, did it, and we pulled it down, and we ended up making a bow drill set out of it, and then I got an ember on it first try, and it was like, oh, and we then kept that fire going for an entire week as we were
yeah,
living out of our natural shelters, and it was amazing. And when we built our shelter, we had a fire outside and a fire inside that we'd carried in. We'd
perfect.
carried the embers in,
Yeah.
and so we had a fire in the shelter and out the shelter, both lit by one ember made by one spruce bough, and it was so cool.
It is that's one of the beauties about bow drill. It's such a charm, and yeah, any friction fire. To be honest, it's just and once you crack it, yeah, it's brilliant. So good luck with those Bushalutions, and to anyone else that is your call now to send us in your Bushalutions. The next episode
Yes.
probably will be dedicated to Bushalutions alone, considering we do get quite a few. So please reply to them in the comments on Spotify. We have a comment section for the podcast. And also you can email them through at the Wodesman podcast at gmail.com. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. I really enjoyed going through those with you, Tom.
Yeah, hopefully we get enough to do another episode, because I really love that community interaction. So please,
Yes.
guys, if you are thinking of focusing on a skill, or there's something you want to learn, just let us know. It takes a few seconds to just drop us a message about it, and it really does help us, because it gives us things to sort of use your goals as inspiration for us, and we love hearing from you. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you're umming and ahhing about sending in a Bushalution, just do it would be really nice to hear from
And we
you.
can kind of cater future episodes to some of these topics as well, which is fantastic. Um, and yeah, it like Tom said, it gives us some food for thought. So I think we've got to fairly quickly wrap up now as well, which is um, always a shame on the Woes podcast because I so enjoy talking to you. But we wanted to quickly before we finish off just a few minutes about some tips, which is relevant to the season that we're in, which is
Yeah.
as we spoke about before, cooking in winter or cooking in the cold, kind of how we basically think of everything entailing that side of our camps. So it's things like choosing the right foods or the right ingredients to bring along or methods of cooking. So we just wanted to have a little quick conversation about that before we leave. So you guys can just have a little bit of food for thought. And if you've got any questions about it, post them again in the comments or via email or on the Instagram, and we'll be sure to answer them next time. Because there's a lot, isn't there, Tom, to
there
win,
is there
and it
is
does change it.
And I think the first thing to say on anything winter related with cookery is it makes your fire prep and choice of materials all that more important. I mean, as I said, it's -5 here at the moment, and we've had snow, and we don't get snow here like you get in Sweden or other parts of Scandinavia or Canada, or but
You know,
fire preparation and using woods that burn for a long time, creating a base so that you get those embers, digging down if you've got snow so that you get to the bare earth if you can. If not, there's ways of doing it on top of snow, with platforms and things. But it's making sure that you can have a good bed of hot embers to cook on. So I think the first step in any winter cooking is thinking through your fire lighting and thinking through your choice of materials for it. So Liam, if you were going to be cooking in the woods in winter, what would be the sort of woods you'd be looking for building that fire?
see, it's always funny because like you can get caught into one train of thought and think, well, I'd start my fire with birch, and therefore birch is my winter fuel source, or it's a very reliable winter fuel source. And although that's true, and yes, I'd be looking for that for my kindling material if I was able to find it, that's what I'd be using. Birch twigs. It's great in cold, damp conditions. But then I wouldn't use anything really past the kindling stage of that birch tree, because I know it would just burn too quickly. So I'm going to be putting a lot of energy into collecting something that's not going to last too long. So I'd be looking for hardwoods like the oaks or the ash, um, you know, dense woods. And of course, that's not always possible in places like the boreals, or where there's only pines and things like that. But again, pines very valuable with fat woods. You've got resin in
Mm,
them. Really easy to obtain kindling material. Um, so yeah, I'd really be looking for the initial stuff to be the very quick burning, high resinous, high tars, high oil.
mm,
Like I said, birches, evergreens, larch, even a very good one.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, there's things like holly which will burn really well when it's green, but it's more of a kind of slow burny, waxy kind of burn.
mm,
So again, it's very intricate, but mainly it would be hardwoods if I had to. And if
yeah.
I was only able to use pine, I'd have to then reassess cooking.
Yeah, if you're going to use the resinous woods, you're going to want some form of cookware between the food and and the fuel, because obviously it imparts flavor. And if we are trying to get maximum enjoyment of and taste and flavor
and health.
out of our food and health, we don't really want the burger we're cooking to taste of pine resin.
No.
So you'd have to then reassess how you're going to cook using those woods. But obviously, some places you're limited by the resources of the area. So if there aren't any hardwoods, then you're sort of stuck with the softwoods, and that's fine. But if they're available, it is good, as Liam said, to look for those dense, high BTUs hardwoods. So beech is another one to throw out there,
Oh yeah.
which it's a short grain, but if you do find
Hornbeam as
beech trees, hornbeam, yeah, absolutely. If you do find beech trees, they often have deadfall around them, because the short grain of those limbs means that often in the spring when the sap rises, the big limbs will fall off. So you have this nice supply of a nice supply of hardwood around the base of a beech tree. Um, Hornbeam, as you say, brilliant wood for cooking on. Oak is my favourite.
well. Oh yes, the
Um,
smell of oak, man. Like, come on. It's
you
just
just
like,
can't.
oh, we're burning it.
Yeah,
It sounds
and
so bad when you say it like that, but it's
all
so
that
good.
oak, man. Depending on where you are, like you've got hickory and all those sort of cherry woods, apple wood, all those
Yeah,
woods
lots
that
of
you
things
might
we're not
see.
very exposed to, are we? Over here.
I
We got
mean,
some brilliant woods, but
yeah, we got cherry and apple, and I've cooked over both of those. And the fruit woods tend to be a really good shout with cooking, as they do impart nice flavors. They burn pretty well.
well, it's an
Um,
easily identifiable thing, the hardwoods, aren't they, and stuff, fruit trees as well, which is good. But it's like you say, I think changing your cooking is dependent on the wood. It's it then also, like you said, the BTU aspect of it is a really good way of analogizing that, because you might get some softwoods actually that do put out a very good BTU performance compared to something like oak. So if it's only warmth you're looking for as well, and
mm,
you're not cooking, then you could actually say, well, actually, we're at that part of the evening where we're not using it for food. Let's put on the resinous woods again. That although they burn a little bit quicker, they provide immense more heat value. But you're looking for coals. You're looking for something like oak where you can burn it down, and those coals are going to last for a long time, slow and low and slow, as you can say.
yeah, absolutely. Low and slow for cooking is definitely the preferred way. So managing your fire in a way that is, when you're cooking on it, maybe having a separate area. I like to call it ember generation. You
Hmm.
might have a side where you've got a billy can over the top of it with flames going mad off to one side, but
Exactly.
you're not actually cooking on that. All that is doing is boiling some water for washing up
Yeah.
and producing coals, which you're then raking across to the cooking part of your fire.
Yes.
And by maybe thinking about your fire in advance and how are you going to do it, maybe setting out, there's a method called a keyhole fire, where you
Mm.
have a separate area when you drag the coals out for cooking, or there's, maybe just turf out a slightly larger area for your fire. The right hand side you have flame, the left hand side you have embers, and the flame is generating more embers you can drag across for cooking.
Very handy for pavement
um,
mistakes, you know.
Absolutely. And I think it's just thinking about those things, especially in winter, because it's cold. So you tend to be more hungry. So you tend to want to get your food quicker. Um, and you can end up making mistakes easier as well,
Yeah.
I find.
And that even goes into, very quickly touching on it. And we could do a whole episode on this, and maybe we'll have to in the future. But even picking your foods, you want to be bringing stuff with you that is high calories, high protein, high fat, stuff that's going to give you the energy to not only do the tasks that you need to do to maintain camp, to maintain your fire, and to feel refreshed while you're outside, because you want to be switched on. Like Tom said, you don't want to be flagging and making mistakes, but you also want to be able to have your body not having to work super hard to
Mm,
generate heat, and you want to have excess in case things turn south, because at any time things could turn negative when you're out camping, or
mm,
you could slip and fall, or you could have an accident. The weather could come in worse always. You can never beat mother nature, as they say.
mm,
So having an open mindset to not only constructing your fire and the woods that you have to choose, but also what you're choosing to bring in to cook, so you're not wasting that time on something that's
Mm,
valuable, or you're not filling yourself with just carbohydrates and you actually haven't thought about protein. There was something
yeah.
you said to me really good, that if you want to be warm at night, eat red meat before bed. Your dream.
Yeah, there's always a good portion of my pack is dedicated to steak. No, just I love red meat, so I'll normally have, if I'm camping, I'll normally have something beefy, bit of cow in my diet. But it doesn't, you don't have to have just red meat, but it is a good option. And I personally think that it's the best time to eat red meat is when you're by a fire and you can
Or
cook
some
it really
cheese.
lovely over. Oh yeah, with some cheese.
Telling me
But
that.
yeah, red meat is a good option. I always tend to have a snack or something with me as well, and it could be trail mix or something, just that I can snack on while I'm sort of working, and then don't necessarily have to stop to cook my food. I've got that sort of supply of calories to keep me going while I'm doing something else, and then can focus on really enjoying my dinner later on.
No,
um,
that's a good shout. The trail mix always keeps you going, and it's little things like that, tiny little bits of fuel, like top ups, and stuff that really help. And I think, yeah, it's just one of those things you've got to get used to. I think when you're out, when you're first starting your bushcraft journey, maybe do some day trips in winter. Go out, get comfortable doing things, get comfortable cooking, get comfortable knowing how woods perform in a campfire setting, and then transferring that to cooking, because it can be really easy to burn things because you've got too high a
mm.
flame. You might say, actually, that wood, just every time I put a pan on there, I'm burning things. So we're going to do that. Oh, if I'm using this wood, and you do learn quickly.
Mate, honestly, this has just reminded me of a comment I had this week. I had a comment on one of my videos. Now, like we're all like, I see myself as a decent cook, not a good cook, a decent cook, and I can throw together some really tasty food. I think anyway. And I
Absolutely.
made on my birthday, I put together some of my favorite things: meat and cheese, and
Love
we
it.
had steak that
Speak of the
was
devil.
absolutely delicious. I have to say, it was divine, right? So
Nice.
it had garlic, rosemary, butter, salt, pepper. All right, and
Excellent.
it was cooked to the point where it was just melt in the mouth, and it was lovely. All right, but
So good.
I don't care if I burnt a bit of garlic, because
It is what
in
it
the
is.
woods it actually adds to the flavour.
Yeah.
Right, and we had a camembert as well, and we had meat and cheese, and it was all delicious. Had this one comment that was like, "I bet your wife appreciates being given bitter burnt garlic."
Oh, no.
And I was just like, "Oh, honestly, you just can't win." Like this perfectly cooked steak, and then like a tiny little bit of the garlic was a little
One
bit black because
fragment of
I
garlic.
put it a little bit too early in the pan, and yeah,
Turns out it's
I
not even
probably.
garlic, like a twig that fell down.
I mean, if I was being, serving that steak in a Michelin star restaurant, I would have put the garlic in later. Yeah, so it
Yes,
didn't
or
burn.
remove that one bit of burnt garlic
Yeah,
from the
but
plate.
it tasted damn good, and I'm pretty glad I cooked it how I did because it was
Man.
perfect. Anyway, my response to that guy was, "I bet you're fun at parties."
Man. Yeah, but, it's just been, I always find that with content creation, no matter what you do, you can't win.
No,
No,
it's so
it's
funny.
so funny.
You
And
just got
with
to
that,
laugh.
I literally, you have to laugh. You have to laugh. You have to have a good sense of humor to do what we do, guys. But with that, I think we recap what we've just basically gone over, which for you guys, just for listening, which is, yeah, just have a little think about the wood you're choosing, have a think about the way you're cooking things. We'll probably go into a, a bit more depth about this in a future episode, because there's things I'd like to talk about with you, Tom, and get your opinions on. And likewise, I'm sure about, different cooking utensils. We both have our
Mm,
favorite kind of things we cook on, and we
yeah.
both have experience cooking on different things. So maybe we could make it a future episode to talk about.
Definitely, and there are some things that I know, you like to avoid when cooking with, and it would be nice to hear your
Oh
opinion on
yes.
those. So I think that would be a great future episode. So let us know if you'd like to hear that. And I think the other thing with cooking is, do think about how you set out your fire. Do you have a separate area for
Amen.
coals and flame? And also when you have your dinner, because it
Oh
actually
yes.
does make a big difference if you have your dinner at 5 o'clock when it gets dark, because obviously it gets dark so much earlier, and you have your and then you go to bed and you're like, oh, I've got a bit of a rumbling in my rumbling in my tummy, because you're hungry because you had your dinner as soon as it got dark, um, and then you go to bed, you're gonna sleep cold. So don't go to bed hungry in the winter. Eat later, and then it will actually make you feel warmer.
Yeah, and if you think about it, well, all the time you're not cooking, you are building up that bed of coals, like you said. Um, so it's only aiding your cooking. It's perfect.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason why, even in the winter, you can't cook a really gourmet meal, even if you do have slightly burnt garlic.
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
If you have any recipes or anything that you're going to be cooking or trying out that you want to cook in the winter, do as well. Just write into us, and maybe we'll read
Yeah,
those out
please.
as well at the
So we're always
Bushalutions
looking out for new good
episode.
camp cooking kind of tips, and it would be great to include those. Yeah, and try them out as well. We can give you our feedback as well, because you never know what you find. There's actually one dish, and I'll leave the cooking section on this. There's one dish that I really want to try, and I think it's Canadian or it might be French. But then French and Canada, two peas of the same pod in place. Um,
Sorry to our Canadian viewers, listeners.
but no, it's poutine. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I'd
yeah,
love to try that. Yeah, yeah.
gravy, cheese curds, and
Oh,
chips, basically. Like, oh man, need to do it. So
makes me
maybe
love Canada even more. I've never been to Canada. It's my of all the places in the world, Canada is the place I want to visit the most. Just
I
to go
need
to
to go on a food trip.
The Canadian Boreal is just like, that is my dream destination. So,
Yeah,
if we do have any Canadian listeners, thank you for listening from so far away. But also,
100%.
um, yeah, we are very jealous of your forests.
We are. Yeah, we got to go all the way to Scotland for even a hint.
Mm.
That's on the cards anyway, isn't it, Tom?
Mm,
And yeah.
definitely.
But with that note, I guess yeah, we want to just express all our gratitude to you guys listening. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
your solutions earlier. Thank you for listening, tuning in, um, and yeah, listening to us two bumble along. It's been great though talking to you, Tom, today.
Yeah, it's been really lovely, mate. It's been really good. And another week, I'd like to also just have a brief, when we talk about skills. I just want to hear your opinions on battening, because that's another thing that's been brought up recently in discussions I've been having, and like I've got a pretty strong opinion about it. I am pro battening. I'm on the team of the batteners. I batten all the time. And I know it's one of those things that's controversial, but I think it's needlessly controversial, because if you don't want to batten your knife, don't batten your knife. If you do want to, make sure you get a sturdy knife and do it. It's your knife. So I don't think there should be any animosity or like or controversy around it. It's just, it would be something I would like to discuss and have some frank conversation about the utility of it versus the risks versus the sort of full blown wars you see on comment sections
Oh
about
yes.
it. And I'm sure it will get us some slack. I'm sure it will get people shouting at us in all caps. But I am prepared for it.
And that's the thing. It's like so many things. It's opinions. And at the end of the day, do what you do. Like rock that.
But yeah, massive thank you to everyone
Yeah.
who's bothered to give up their time to sit and listen to us talk like old men about things that we love. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're always surprised that anyone actually listens, and then also humbled by the fact that people are interested. So thank you.
Yeah, it does mean a lot, and it also means a lot if you guys could share this and just give us, give us a follow, give us a little rating on Spotify, drop us a comment, whatever you want to do. Any interaction's lovely. It's just nice to hear from you guys, like Tom said, and yeah, it wouldn't be a podcast without you listening. It would
No,
just be
well, we
us.
wouldn't still be doing it if
No,
if we didn't get the enjoyment from it like we do, which is hearing from you as listeners and also
yeah, that's
being
our
able to talk to each other. There would be no point to this. Like me and Liam wouldn't be recording it to share if other people weren't interested. We'd be having the same conversations, we just wouldn't be recording
yeah, that's it. Yeah, just
them.
go into the ether.
So yeah, it still blows my mind that people actually want to listen to this, but thank you very much for doing it.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, like last time, I want to leave you with a little something. So until next time, keep your fires warm and your spirits wilder. So happy New Year from us too.
A massive happy new year. Yeah, and good luck with those people who have given us Bushalution today in achieving your Bushalution, and for everyone else that's coming up with their Bushalution, we'll look forward to hearing
Amen. Take care.
it. All right, brother. I'll speak to you soon.
I'll speak to you soon, mate. Bye bye.